we have another question coming in, which says, what about developing employees by e-learning or with the help of e-learning? My question would focus especially on gamification. So I think the question refers to what about gamified e-learning and to develop employees through that method?
Well, let me say, gamification is just a methodology, okay? Instead, gamification, I would talk about, I would prefer to talk about employee engagement and capability building. Then, if you, of course, you can use e-learning approach, and of course, with the e-learning support, you can offer a continuous learning and support the right adoption of the new culture and the new way to work. So it's not just about gamification, but I would say about something that is really engaging and at the same time that develop competencies.
Thank you, Matteo. There's another question that says, do you see any differences between business to consumer and business to business sales process digitalization?
Oh, yes, of course. Of course, there are some differences, but if we are able to, let me say, define a specific process in terms of sales that could start from the leading generation, passing through the negotiation till the execution, closing, and then post-sales. And basically, you have to create a sort of matrix that represent the main phases of your sales process, and you have to identify where digitalization could provide you some values, and at the end, how you have to redesign your business process. I make you an example. In the B2B sales process, today, you can leverage a lot of data that can support you to create some good leads and more effective leads in your sales process. Digitalization could help your sales professional, for example, to gain information in order to go to the meeting well prepared in terms of what the company is already is doing or they want to do, what your competitor can do, and of course how you can solve the problem. So there's a difference in terms of B2C and B2B, in terms, let me say, of how create relationship and how manage relationship. But if I look at the sales process, probably we have the same phases, and the digitalization can support us at a different level for each different phase.
Thank you. There's a lot more questions coming in, actually, so I will try to maybe group them. There's one question saying, in your experience, which aspects of digitalization are the most crucial to integrate in employee trainings?
This is a quick question. Talking about which aspect, probably it's very important to create a training courses that are very aligned to the current business, to the current process, and basically to the real world, in order to let them understand and let them and transfer to them the opportunity to touch how their way to work could change thanks to the digitalization. But of course, my answer, I know, is very general, because you have to go in depth and understand exactly how the company want to use digitalization in the sales process, and where there are the, let me say, the areas of value of the process.
Next question comes from Joao Pereira, and it says, what is a digital native culture? How would you define a digital native culture?
Oh, well, digital native culture, from my experience, well, actually, I do not have any definition, but digital native culture is an attitude, and is the attitude to look for a new solution to solve your current business problem from one side, and at the same time to open new business opportunity. So it's a way to think about, let me say, makes the business grow using different, let me say, different drivers, different business drivers.
Actually, we will share this. I will, if the attendees are interested, I will share this Gartner survey because there's some useful information regarding this in that as well. It says the key actions that drive digital dexterity are business acumen, adaptability, political savviness, fusion collaboration, and system thinking. So these are the aspects that define or drive the digital dexterity of the workforce. Next question. How would you approach a team of sales guys with a 20 plus years field experience, but total ignorance of digitalization?
Thanks, Ivan, for the question.
Scenario, right?
Thanks, Ivan, for the question, because this is especially in the banking business in which I'm involved most of the time. This is the critical aspect when we talk about digitalization. In this case, you have to propose a step-to-step training, starting from basics, and then improve the digital competencies for their specific needs, providing micro contents, micro training guides, and allow them to test and try. So in this case, you have to make a sort of back to basic, and then providing a little bit more day by day. In this case, you are lucky because outside the business environment today, people are still they are comfortable using a new technology device, so they are not at the zero level. But of course, in the business, especially in sales, you have to support them day to day, and it's very critical to identify sponsor inside the sales department that can support them in the daily activities.
A question that is a little bit related to this probably is: Can we replace traditional trainings? How can an online tool replace a good trainer?
Of course not, I would say. I mean, this is, let me say, a little bit far from the topic of today, but in my point of view, training, the training industry is going to, let me say, create two main driver of training. We have the online training, and then we have, let me say, the coaching training. So talking about digitalization, you can solve the problem, provide it the resources. Let me say an online training, of course, because if we talk about digitalization, probably it's useful to start with something that looks more digital, but at the same time, it's very helpful to fix some moments in order to provide to the users the opportunity to having a sharing moment with some experts in order to collect some best practice and sharing some troubles or ideas.
Yeah, most of these best practices that we have discussed before also usually include a certain level of blended learning approach. Like generally also, it's not only about a gamified training tool. The gamified training tool supports a complete blended approach with mentoring, classroom trainings, traditional e-learning, and a lot of all these tools blended together make the effect, the outcome. There's another question, a longer one here from Cornelia Funovic, and it says, are there some specific practical aspects which help a company to decide if gamification or a classical e-learning system should be implemented? She means, I don't think she doesn't think it's a question of a company's philosophy. There should be some other aspects, shouldn't there?
Well, I think, Cornelia, that the company in this case should evaluate how the level of the engagement they want to obtain from the resources. I mean, online training, traditional online training, sometimes looks a little bit more static because it's just a step-by-step process. There's no sort of engagement, and most of the time, the resources that are involved in the learning process, they are not able to connect the learning aspects to the real task that they do every day on the job. So this is what I call, this is why I talk about engagement, because the difference is that sometimes if you want to obtain a concrete result in the cultural transformation, you have to support the resources, providing them training, but also linking the training to the real task, and measure the result they obtain in the real world that should be connected to the training.
And the last question, because we are running out of time, is when it comes to a multinational company, is there any difference between the level of digital dexterity in different countries where these multinational companies are present? Do you have any experience in that field? I know that you've worked in different regions in different countries, from China to Europe.
Yes, of course. There are several differences. And in this case, the way to manage this problem basically is to design a unique path, okay? And after that, it's very important to make a very in-depth assessment in order to understand the true level of gaps, and acting country by country, providing exactly the training contents they need in order to achieve the same level of standard you designed at the beginning. So in this case, in a cross-country project, the assessment phase is very critical. And even in this case, you have the most difficult part is to create the right engagement in every country.
It came up also in the last month's webinar where we were talking to Citibank's representative, and he mentioned that even within the bank, just in Hungary, they have huge differences between the digital dexterity of different employee groups. So the way they address it is that they had different levels in the digital transformation learning contents. They had like more basic level contents and more advanced contents. And then everybody could decide where they wanted to start, but they wanted to make sure that everybody gets to the same level at the end, so that when colleagues have to interact in different projects, that they speak the same language and they have a similar understanding of concepts and understanding of tools and processes in order to be more efficient and speak the same language. Okay, since we pretty much ran out of time, thank you very much, everybody, all the attendees, for all these questions, and Matteo, especially to you for answering all these questions.
Thank you.
We will be sharing the recording of this webinar with all the attendees, and the little material that we will put together, we will also share. If anybody has any questions or would like to request any of the case studies or maybe the Gartner research, we are happy to share that also. So feel free to contact us via email or through our website. And we will be sharing future events organized by Games for Business with you. So if you feel free to attend them in the future. Thanks everyone again. Matteo, have a good flight.
Thank you very much. Thanks for all the attendance, also for the patience, because my connection was not very good, and also my camera probably was not so stable.
I think it was all right. Don't worry about it. I mean, I could follow you all the way, and so far we only received positive feedback, so I think it's all good. So thanks everybody. Have a good afternoon, and goodbye.